That was Jeff Zeleny reporting down. For some more perspective, I want to bring in now Jonathan Mann, host of CNN's Political Mann. Great to have you with us on set. Now, looking at Michigan, Sanders spent more money than any other candidate, including all the Republican candidates. We've got an interesting graphic I want to show you here. And also, he spent more time there than his rival Hillary Clinton.
He worked harder, but I think what we really saw was not only hard work, but his message resonating. When you think about Bernie Sanders, you think about income inequality, you think about him railing against trade, international trade that he thinks is destroying America's industrial base, and think about the wreck that is Detroit, which was once the motor of the U.S. economy. Michigan is suffering, and angry people are turning to new alternatives. Bernie Sanders is that alternative. It wasn't just angry people, though. He did well among liberals who voted in record numbers, people on the left side of the Democratic Party. He did well among better educated, affluent people. He did well among young people. And crucially, he did better in Michigan, it would seem, among African-American voters than he ever has before. Hillary Clinton did win something about 61% of African-American voters, but Bernie Sanders got about a third of them, and he's never gotten that many. And so by eating into her coalition and his own coalition turning out in record numbers, he really, really did very well in Michigan with the voters he needed. And that's the basis of the surprise. And let me just mention one thing. Even he was surprised. You say Hillary Clinton, wasn't in Michigan much. He was in Florida when the results were announced. He was in his hotel room. He thought the night was over for him, and it was only when his people told him he'd won that he descended to give his acceptance speech for the Michigan victory, already looking ahead to Florida. A little bit surprised, but obviously delighted.
A huge surprise. And looking at Hillary Clinton, she, as I said, was not in Michigan yesterday. And the last time we heard from her in that last report, she seemed to be looking ahead to the November election rather than focusing on Michigan. She sounded like she already had it in the bag. Was she taking it for granted?
Well, if she does not win this nomination, or if she doesn't win the presidency, the post-mortem, you could write it today. Complacency. They didn't expect Sanders to do nearly as well at the outset of this campaign, and every step of the way, it seems they're surprised that he's doing so well. Not that he's going to win the nomination. You saw the delegate numbers. It still looks extremely odd, but the Clinton people just don't know how to close the deal. They don't know how to get him to drop out. And so he will trail them, continue to eat away and dominate more of her energy and attention than she would like, simply because he's not going to win, but he's determined that he's not going to quit either. So it's the worst of all possible worlds for Hillary Clinton and for the Democratic Party, because this is going to be a drag-out, stubborn campaign in a way that she clearly wasn't expecting, as recently as last night. A surprise for the Clinton people.
Absolutely. Stay with us, Jonathan Mann. We're going to look at the Republicans, and we'll bring you back in for a chat. We will look at Donald Trump, of course, ploughing ahead after another strong night. Now, his confidence on display at a news conference he held once the victories were secured. CNN's Jim Acosta has that.
Only one person did well tonight, Donald Trump.
It was another election night victory lap for Donald Trump, serving up some red meat to the crowd in the form of Trump steaks, along with Trump wine and Trump water. The GOP frontrunner laughed off the Stop Trump forces out to destroy his campaign.
I don't think I've ever had so many horrible, horrible things said about me in 1 week.
From the Super PAC ads bombarding him on the airwaves.
I want to thank the special interests and the lobbyists, because they obviously did something to drive these numbers.
To his top rivals, Ted Cruz.
Lying Ted. He holds the Bible high, and then he goes down, he puts the Bible down, and then he lies.
And Marco Rubio, who failed to slow his momentum.
Hostility works for some people, it doesn't work for everybody.
John Kasich ended up neck and neck with Cruz for second place in Michigan, bolstering his case that he should stay in this race.
The people are beginning to reward a positive campaign. Next week, we are going to win the state of Ohio, and it'll be a whole...
Cruz won Idaho, managing to perform better than Marco Rubio, who had another rough night. The Florida senator is still holding out hope for his home state.
I believe with all my heart that the winner of the Florida primary next Tuesday will be the nominee of the Republican Party.
As Cruz again is making the argument he's the GOP's best candidate to stop Trump.
What Donald Trump wants is he wants us divided. If we are divided, he wins the nomination and Hillary becomes president. If we unite, that ain't gonna happen.
That was CNN's Dimmer Costa reporting. I want to bring back Jonathan Mann. Now, looking at both the victories of Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders, it seems like a lot of people out there are disaffected, angry voters.
What you are seeing is one phenomenon reflected on the two sides of the American political spectrum. Two outsiders, Donald Trump, who was never active in Republican politics, never ran for elected office, hijacking the Republican Party, much to the discomfort of the Republicans, and Bernie Sanders, who was an avowed socialist. He likes to call himself a democratic socialist, but he wasn't a member of the Democratic Party. And on both sides, the anger and frustration and the disappointment of the electorate is fueling this desire to basically wipe the slate clean, get rid of the existing leadership, and start in a very, very different direction. And so we're seeing anger about income inequality on Bernie Sanders, but especially focused on trade, really railing against the destruction of the middle class, the destruction of the industrial base. That's exactly what Donald Trump is saying, slightly different language. But Donald Trump also campaigning against trade, international trade, free trade as it's called, as the centerpiece of his campaign. What's so interesting is that the Republican Party has traditionally been the party of free trade. The Democrats under President Clinton, under President Obama, came around to it. There was a bipartisan coalition. Both parties were supporting greater and freer trade. Now it seems there are insurgents on both sides of both parties saying that was an enormous mistake that the country has to respond to. So oddly similar trends in both parties, though, being expressed in very different language and very different tone by Sanders on the left and Trump on the right.
And now looking at Trump's victory speech last night, it seemed a little bit like a bad info commercial. We saw Trump water and Trump wine and Trump steaks. Is he trying to build his brand as much as he is trying to fight for this commander-in-chief role?
I think what you're seeing there is Trump's Achilles heel, which is that he's a hypersensitive person. He is very prone to take offense. And so Mitt Romney came out and gave this closely watched speak a week ago and said he's no economic genius. Trump Magazine, Trump Steaks, Trump University. He named all of these different Trump enterprises that he said had failed, and Trump's been angry about it ever since, the way he's angry about Marco Rubio making fun of his hands. Trump doesn't leave alone the insult to the size of his hands, and he's not leaving this alone either, and he's an utterly bizarre candidate. It seemed, like you say, an infomercial. I've never seen anyone do anything like that. But Trump, once insulted, responds over and over and over again. He takes it very personally, and that's the only sense you can make of that. Clearly, it's not much of a vote getter, except it does respond to Romney's complaint that he doesn't know what he's doing when it comes to running businesses. But really, is that the way to show it? It was just bizarre.
It
I mean,
was
you had
bizarre.
to scratch your head.
Highly unexpected. But this whole campaign has been quite unexpected. Jonathan Mann, as always, great to have you on set. Thanks for joining us.
You bet.